I was reading the other day the magazine called Psychology Today, my absolute favorite magazine. And in this magazine, it had an article. The title of the article said, "The 10 Most Difficult Jobs in the World." Now, before I read that article, I thought to myself, can I guess the 10 most difficult jobs in the world? Can I guess what I would assume to be the absolute most difficult job in the world? So before I read that article, I said to myself, toughest job in the world is to be the President of the United States. So with that in mind, I read the article. And as I'm traveling through the difficult jobs in the world, job number 2 was being the President of the United States. And so there was a job even more difficult than that job. When I looked at that, I said to myself, now that makes sense. What do you think is the most difficult job in the world? Any idea? Being a parent, I would have to say that's a tough one. I would agree with you. You would know that firsthand better than I, but it turns out to be, I'll give you a little hint. This job is held by just one person. This person does this job 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This person receives a whole lot of complaints, very little compliments. What do you think they had listed as the absolute most difficult job our world? It was this right here. The job of being God. That is the most difficult job in the world. How does God satisfy all of his children? I'm sure he learned early on, it is near impossible. Now, today's gospel reading. The gospel comes out of the 9th chapter of Luke, verses 51 to 62 inclusive. And in this gospel reading, we find out what makes the job of being God just so difficult. Because God receives a lot of lip service. He receives a lot of kind things said to him, but sometimes those kind things are veneer thick. It turns out to be that, well, let's take a look at verse 58 of the 9th chapter of Luke. Verse 58 says this: as they were proceeding on their journey, now that's a group of the disciples of Jesus, James and John and some others, and a group of unidentified people. Now they're walking along with Jesus, and someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." Now, Jesus had to feel pretty good about that. The person is saying, "Jesus, I want to be just like you. I want to walk your walk. I want to talk your talk. I want to go through in life exactly what you went through in your life." And that is what every Christian says. Every baptized Christian. Now, we're baptized as little babies, so I didn't make that commitment when I was a baptized baby. I didn't know that was to me. But when I got older and I was confirmed at a confirmation age, I say, "God, yes, I confirm my desire to follow you wherever you go." Now, that's what they Jesus will follow you wherever you go, Jesus. We're with you. And look at what happens by the time we get to verse 59 of the 9th chapter of Luke. Take a look. And to another that Jesus said to one of these disciples, "Follow me." And right there, when Jesus believes these people say, "I will follow you wherever you go," Jesus said, "Great, follow me." And look at what he receives right away. There it is. But he said, "Lord, let me go and bury my father first." Now, it seems like an admirable thing to say, but quickly the guy comes up with what? An excuse right away. "I'll follow you wherever you go, Jesus, but right now, here's my excuse." Now, it turns out to be that he makes it sound like he's going to be tied up burying his father for the next couple of years. And what happens? The person was Jewish. Jewish custom is simply this, that when you die, you must be, not maybe, you must be buried before sunset of the same day that you died. So when you die, you're going to be buried within a 24-hour span of time, or a lot less than that. So if you pass away at noontime, you'll be buried that particular day before sunset, just a couple hours away. This person should have said to Jesus, "I have to bury my father. He passed away. And right after sunset, I get the burial taken care of. I'll follow you." With just a delay of a couple hours at most. But he makes it sound like, "I'll follow you, but let me first bury my father." But it seems like there's a long delay, and immediately he offers Jesus an excuse. Is that happen every so often? Or coming up with excuses why you can't do something as you make a contract with God? Does that happen often? Well, let's take a look at verse 61. Let's see if this was just a one-time thing. Verse 61, 9th chapter of Luke. And another said, there it is, one of the other disciples, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me say farewell to my family at home. So it makes it sound like this guy's going to run home and stay home. He's going to hide. Instead of just saying, right back, they're over there, I'll tell them bye, I'm coming back. It makes it sound like when this guy separates from Jesus, he's going to run so fast and so far, Jesus won't even know where he's at. But don't you see what happens here? There it is. Lord, I'll follow you. No question about it. But there's the excuse, I have to say farewell to my family. It's going to take me a whole long, I might never get back by the time I get this done. You see, it's the excuses that God hears all the time that makes being God, I would say, such a difficult job. When a person is sick, we make these contracts with God all the time. When you are sick, and if you have been sick, and I know a lot of people have said this to me when I visit them in a hospital, and I'm going to anoint them, or right after I anoint them, they'll say to me, Father Ken, I told God, if you get me better, I'm going to be in church every Sunday. And then they get better, and they say to God, well, I'll be in church every Sunday, but not this Sunday. I'm a little tied up. See, they make the contract, they expect God to come through with his half, and then they come up with a mean excuse. This is why I can't do it. That's why being God is so difficult. Excuse after excuse after excuse. Or the person who says, God, I tell you what, if you allow me to hit the lottery, I'll make a deal. I'll give you 10%. How's that sound? If God wants 10% of this Powerball, he better let me hit the lottery. God, if you want the money, it's yours. Just let me hit the Powerball. So the person hits the lottery, maybe not the Powerball, but maybe something similar, Cash 5, or maybe they just won $100. And what do they say usually? Oh, the church has enough money. They don't need my money. Actually, here's the truth of the matter is, God never needs your 10%. He doesn't need your money. Everything on this earth is his. Why do you think you could con him and say, God, if you allow me to win this or win that, I'll give you something? God is saying, everything that you have is mine. Everything that you see is mine. I don't need your end. But what I'm disappointed in is the fact that you try to con me. You came up with a contract that you made. I didn't ask you to make the contract. And the second I fulfilled my end and you got better. The second I fulfilled my end and you hit the lottery. Quickly, not to go to church and not to give me my 10%. Excuse after excuse after excuse. Did you wonder what would happen if God woke up one Sunday? He probably never goes to sleep, but if God woke up one day and he just said, I am tired of all the excuses. I quit. I'm not going to be God anymore. Forget about it. I think it's his option, right? He's God. He could take a couple days off. He could say, look, I'm just going to quit. Let someone else do it. No one else can. What would happen if God simply, did this? Let's take a look. How is it that God above has never gone on strike? Because he wasn't treated fair for the things that he didn't like. If only once, just once, God had given up and said, I am through. I've had enough of those on earth, so this is what I'll do. I'll give my orders to the sun, cut off the heat supply. And to the moon, give no more light, and run the oceans dry. And then just to make things really tough and put the pressure on, I'll turn off the vital oxygen till every breath is gone. God would be justified if fairness was the game. For no one has been more abused or met with disdain than God. And yet God carries on supplying both you and me with all the favors of his grace. And everything God gives is absolutely free. People say they want a better deal, so on strike they go. But what a deal we've given to God, to whom all things we owe. We don't care whom we hurt to gain the things we like. But what a mess would all be in if our good God should go on strike. Isn't that something to think about? The next time you make a contract with God to get better or hit the lottery, something good happen in your life, and you say, God, if you let this happen, I'll do this. I think what God would really like to see you do is to keep up with your end of the bargain. Today's gospel reading, one excuse after another. How many times in your life when you talk to God, you make one excuse after another? We would be in a real jam. Just something to think about. Hopefully it doesn't keep you from having a good night's sleep tonight. But it's something to think about. What would happen if God said, that's it, I've had enough of all the excuses, that's it, I'm going on strike? We'd be in a real jam. God, I say thank you. Thank you for working so long, so hard, receiving all complaints, no compliments. In life, we owe God everything. I think what we need to do is the reverse of Luke chapter 9, verse 51 to 62. Tell God what we're going to do, and then cut out the excuses.